So the government has forthright declared that 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election. But is that true? Can they do that? Should they do that? And is there anything else we should be thinking about first? For example, what else do we not allow anyone to do until they reach at least the age of 18? Well, this might surprise you. And the short answer is, well, yes, they can. And the longer answer is, it's not that simple. As usual, it's never that simple. But that makes headlines like this one a little bit misleading because it says 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to vote in the next general election. Well, that's not necessarily true because when Lucy Powell was pressed about this and why it wasn't in the speech, she said, well, at the time, there were plenty of big bills that didn't make it to the speech, and then stressed that it remains a manifesto commitment, and now the government needs to introduce an elections and democracy bill during this parliament, so over the next few years, to change the law. Because that's what it would need. It would need a change in the law. They cannot unilaterally make this decision to change the age, although that's what you might glean from the headline. It's not that simple. They need to change the law. And the law they need to change is the Representation of the People Act 1983. Just as an aside, a huge thank you to everybody that has subscribed to my Off the Record channel. Now over 76,000 subscribers in just about a month. Thank you so much for doing that. But also a favour. Here on my main channel, more than half of you, just more than half of you, 51% of you that watch this channel regularly don't subscribe. I'd really appreciate it if you did. That's how my channel grows. I know you think it probably doesn't matter, but I'd be really grateful if you did. Hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It's free to subscribe, and it helps my channel grow and reach a wider audience. I am just by myself. I have no big company behind me. It's just me. So thank you very much. And let's get back to the video. Now, there is a little bit of a split in vote across the country, or countries, because in Scotland and Wales, they can vote in local elections, but not in general elections. And these provisions are within sections 1 and 2 of this Act. In local elections, a person is entitled to vote at a local government election in any electoral area if on the date they are registered to vote, not subject to legal incapacity, they're a relevant citizen, and in England, it is 18. They are 18 years and over, or in Wales, they are 16 years or over, and the equivalent version for Scotland as well is 16 years or over. But as for parliamentary elections, everybody needs to be of voting age, which is 18 years or over. And so, in order for this age to change across the board, there needs to be a change in the law. So that needs to change by way of a bill, which is a proposal to amend the law as it currently sits. That will obviously have to go through the House of Commons, the House of Lords, parliamentary ping pong before the end of it. It may or may not get through Parliament and may or may not change the law by the next general election. Now, there's all sorts of questions as to why they might want to change that and whether it's a good idea. I personally know lots of people that think it's a terrible idea. And there are many examples of why it might be a terrible idea, not least of which because people are not entitled to even leave education completely until they are 18. Because once they turn 16, they can leave school by the end, if they turn 16 by the end of the summer holidays, but then they must do one of the following things. They must stay in full-time education, for example, college, or they must start an apprenticeship, or they must spend 20 hours a week or more working or volunteering, or while in part-time education or training, at least as it applies to England. But there are also many other things you can't do as well until you reach 18. Of course, most people know that you cannot buy alcohol until you turn 18. You cannot buy cigarettes till you turn 18. You cannot buy vaping equipment or any other kind of e-cigarettes. You cannot buy aerosol paint. You cannot buy lottery tickets. You cannot buy scratch cards. You cannot buy fireworks. I mean, some people would say that is a very good thing that young people cannot buy fireworks. You can work when you turn 16, but you cannot work between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. or in certain kind of environments. You can't normally claim benefits until you reach 18, except in very limited circumstances. For example, you're estranged or living away from parents and so on. Of course, you can't learn to drive at 16. That begins at 17, when you can learn to drive and take your driving test. You cannot get a tattoo until you're 18, and it is illegal for an artist to tattoo a person who is under the age of 18, even if they have parental consent. You can join the army, but you need your parents' permission to join the army unless you are 18. And whilst the minimum age of criminal responsibility is 10 in England and Wales and 12 in Scotland, you will not be treated as an adult until you reach 18, and so you will not go to an adult prison unless you are 18 years old. In England and Wales, you cannot get married until you are 18 years old. In Northern Ireland, you can get married at 16 and 17, but you'll need your parents' permission to do so. In Scotland, you can get married at 16 and you don't need your parents' permission to do so. And one that might be quite relevant to this whole conversation is you cannot stand for election as a member of parliament until you reach 18 years old. And the same applies for local elections. You cannot stand for election in a local election unless you are 18, even in the areas that you can vote at 16 and 17 years old. You cannot stand for those positions. I mentioned lottery tickets and scratch cards, but that also means you cannot gamble or place any bets until you are 18 years old. You cannot hire a sunbed until you are 18 years old. You obviously cannot buy or rent 18-rated films, not just the spicy ones for the people giggling at the back there, but you cannot buy or rent 18-rated films. Obviously, you cannot hold I say obviously, but you cannot hold a private pilot's license until you are at least 17 years old. You cannot serve on a jury until you are 18 years old. You cannot be liable for council tax until you are 18 years old. You cannot legally enter a contract until you are 18 years old, and that includes tenancy agreements, except Scotland, where you can do so at 16. You can't get a mortgage until you are 18 years old. You cannot get a credit card until you are 18 years old. You cannot open any bank account until you are 18 years old, unless it's a child's account and you get your parents' permission to do so. And so whilst I understand that a lot of young people might want to have a say and a vote in politics, and a lot of people might want young people to have a vote and a say in politics, I think there is an equal argument against it to say that until you are 18, I mean, even 18, I think my personal opinion here, I think until you are 25, I don't think you are going to make sensible enough decisions for a lot of the things that I've discussed in this video, let alone 18, although we have to draw the line somewhere. Because I can remember a lot of stupid decisions I made between the age of 18 and 25, and many people say that the adult brain is not fully developed until you're 25 years old. I'm not a doctor, so don't shoot me in the comments, but I've read a lot of things about that. I personally think that's probably true. I think there's a lot of people make a lot of silly decisions until they are 25 years old. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say, with great respect, that there are a lot of adults that vote in general elections that don't understand the politics, and they don't understand what the parties are going to do, how it works, and what's really going to happen. I've had conversations with people that have voted a certain way and don't seem to understand the basic premise of the manifesto, and that might change and they might not actually do what they are saying. I've had conversations with people that think certain things are happening when they are not happening, or they've read something on Facebook and they think that's what's happening when it's clearly not what's happening. And so where do we draw the line here? Do we just open the vote up to everybody, and do we allow everybody to have a say? Or maybe in jest, we flip this completely the other way and we have a little test first where people have to do and pass this test before their vote is counted. Otherwise, they might not fully understand what they're doing. Anyway, let me know in the comments. This one will be a divisive one. There are very fierce arguments on both sides, but as I've listed, there's a whole list of things that we can't do, we're not allowed to do, we don't allow people to do until they're 18. And so, should we give them the vote? Let me know in the comments what you think, and thanks for watching.